Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Express Expressions, the platform which engages with global leaders, businessmen, politicians on what's happening around us. The motto is fear none, favor none. And today, to express himself, is with us is a special guest, a very spicy gentleman, Ajay Singh, Chairman CEO of SpiceJet. Welcome, Ajay.
Thank you.
How does the world look from the ground, Ajay, now that airlines are not flying? What's your view of how we are doing?
Well, firstly, aviation is in its worst crisis ever. There's no question about it. Airlines, not only in India but around the world, are facing their worst possible crisis. So many of the respected names in aviation are shutting down or are close to shutting down. So it's a terrible time, and we have to somehow, find a way of surviving this crisis and still being alive on the other side. From SpiceJet's perspective, I believe that every crisis is really an opportunity. People say a crisis is too good a thing to waste. And we are trying our very best to create some opportunities from this crisis, in terms of our cargo operation, which we've massively...
Yes, I actually wanted to ask you that. I mean, what is SpiceJet's participation in various efforts, relief efforts? You're also, I think, contracted to repatriate passengers and all. So, I wanted your view of how India has handled the COVID crisis, and B, what is SpiceJet's and your own personal participation in the.
Well, I think we started off extremely well. I think we shut down early. We allowed for time to create capacity. I think it was a very bold move by the Prime Minister and by this government. So kudos to them, I think. But even more than that, I think kudos to the Indian people. I never, in my wildest imagination, thought that Indians could be so disciplined and actually stay indoors and respect the lockdown the way they did. It was absolutely incredible. Made me proud to be an Indian. Made me proud to be an Indian. So I think very well done, India. Of course, there were glitches, and there had to be a country of our size and complexity. There had to be some problems, but now we are at the more challenging part, which is to say how do you now start opening the economy? Because the choice now really is that will you have people die of the virus, or will you have people die of hunger and poverty? So it's a very, very difficult choice for any policymaker, and I think it's clear from what the Prime Minister is saying that they would expect that the economy starts opening up. But can you really do it? How efficiently can you do it? We have to see. We have to open up, and we have to live with this virus. But let's see how disciplined we can be when we actually start to open up.
So during this, all the operations that are going, the government is doing various things and relief, cargo and all. What has been SpiceJet's role? I mean, how does an airline make money while being grounded?
We started very early on, from the first day of the lockdown, starting to carry cargo, which is, initially medicines and medical equipment from different parts of the world into India and distributing it within India as well. We were taking, fruits and vegetables and whatever was essential and needed to be transported from one place to the other. We had crazy episodes. We actually transported one single hazmat suit in a flight. The government imported this one hazmat suit early on in the early days of the problem, and that needed to be replicated in Coimbatore.
And where was this imported from?
It was imported from China, I think. And it came from there, and there was no way to get it from Delhi to Coimbatore. So we actually sent a special flight with just that one suit, to Coimbatore, of course, at our cost. So we've done this. We've tried to help farmers, the shrimp farmers. We are transporting a lot of their product. That whole community would have been in deep trouble if they had no way of getting the shrimp seeds to the centers in Calcutta and Surat and so on. So we've done that. We've taken fruits and vegetables. We've transported them now to Dubai and to Hong Kong and many countries in the Gulf and within India. We continue to take COVID samples and vaccination and such things. So we have actually more than tripled our cargo business in this period of time. And because of that, we are now India's number one cargo operator. But interestingly, we've done some work for society, and we've been able to pay salaries here. That's not something that airlines around the world have been able to do.
No pink slips?
Not as yet. We are still hoping that
That's good.
There have been leave without pay. So we have provided to people the ability
what
to
the Americans call
furlough. So we had little choice but to do some of that. But we've tried to keep people on the roads because we think that it's not easy in this time. It's not easy to find jobs. So if you just sack somebody, where the hell is he going to go? At least the way we are, and we've also ensured that even when we do furlough, the people who are getting really low salaries, we are paying them a sustenance amount so that they can make it through this problem.
Ajay, one question which I asked you. Let me ask one question, Ajay. You have done a wonderful job when it comes to cargo. The question is, we have got about 700 odd planes according to the figures which are on the website. Why these planes were not used for taking migrant labor from various parts of the country? They could have reached some place in 2 hours, 1 hour. They have taken 16 hours and 17 hours. They have paid some money has been paid by the state government, some money has been paid by the central government. You could have also contributed something from your pocket and things would have been better. What did you think? Why did you offer to lift them from various places and take them to the capitals of various states? Why airlines were not involved in lifting this migrant labor? Are they meant for walking on the road?
I don't really have an answer to what you're saying. We have offered from our side very early on. As soon as the migrant problem arose, we had offered and we had suggested that, look, we have all these 600-700 planes standing, and let's find a way to use them for this transportation. You're right. From our perspective, airlines are probably the safest way you can get people from one place to the other. And quickly, in like 2 hours.
You could have avoided the spread of the disease as well, because they would have gone in June.
For sure.
You applied, but no reply.
For sure. So we did suggest, but of course it's for the government to take a call. I think we said to them that, look, you are sending people by bus from let's say Chennai to the northeast.
Northern Assam.
No, the northeast. That was like 5 or 6 days, of a bus ride. And of course, susceptible to a lot of spread of infection, because people will get off to have food, people will, get off for toilet breaks, etc. So you could have actually got, instead of the 6 days, you could have substituted that with a 2.5-hour journey. But I don't know. There seemed to be some hesitation. I think there was this feeling somehow that the airplane space is a constrained space, and that infection spreads because the air circulates. This was just lack of information. This is not how it works.
Is the bus more spread out than the aircraft tickets, the seats? I don't know, because the width of the bus is less than that of the aircraft.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So I don't understand, because you rightly, 600 planes could have carried how many passengers per day, per hour, per flight, I say. How many? You have the experience. How many seat capacities are available?
We could have easily carried, a plane carries roughly 1,000 passengers in a day. Right. So
even 500 passenger flights would have been in operation. You could have called 50,000 passengers in a day.
No, in fact, more than that, right?
5 lakh.
Yeah. So you could have carried a lot of people. So we've suggested it. I think there were some concerns. I don't know what precisely those concerns were, but clearly there were some concerns. But we can still do it. We can still do it. We see no reason why you should be using buses and trains, but not using planes.
And now that state governments are willing or have been cajoled or coerced or slapped into shape to accepting their own people, I think this is the time when, I mean, the sight of people walking is traumatic and inhuman. But at a medical level also, this is like a corona caravan moving, transmitting the problem en route everywhere. So do you have any plans to reiterate your offer? I mean, if you probably did the math and said that, we could lift 6 lakh people and put them point to point, maybe there has been some enlightenment under the Bodhi Vriksh now.
We don't know about that. We don't like to second guess this government. They did a fabulous job at the start of this crisis. But yeah, the offer is there, and we hope that as they start scheduled flights, which will happen at some point, at least to some states, at least to the green zones, at least to the orange zones, and so on.
You see, Ajay, I'm a little surprised because they are sending aircrafts all the way to the United States and San Francisco to pick up the passengers. Why can't send them to Bombay, send them to UP back and take them? Because two-way traffic is available now. People from Odisha want to go back to Bombay to somewhere else. So you could have used the planes both ways, in fact. I'm a little surprised that there's nobody to answer this question, because I asked various people, there's no answer available to this place. Why the aircraft which are lying on the ground, grounded there, are being used for some other capacity, but why they were not useful with their poor people? Because then there's a discrimination comes in, their class discrimination. You are trying to bring in people who can pay 50,000, 1 lakh rupees, but those who can pay 5,000 rupees, they are not being lifted.
Yeah, so I don't know. It really is for the government to decide that. But from our perspective, we feel that as soon as they start these scheduled flights, at least to some destinations, they will allow us to use aircraft to transport whomsoever the state government wants us to transport. So I think part of it could be the concern that there would be a significant amount of money required to fly people. Maybe it was that, I don't know. From our perspective, this would have been the safest and the fastest mode of transport.
But Ajay, I mean, in aircraft operations, fuel is the big cost plus landing charges. The government could have waived off both. I mean, most aviation fuel is being supplied by Indian Oil. It's a government-owned company. Airports are owned by government. They could have worked around it. I think, I get what you're saying. You made an offer. I mean, as Prabhu typically said, it's apply, no reply. And this is one of the spectacular failures of how we manage COVID. I mean, 100 million people on the streets trying to get home is really a sad story.
No, that was very sad. But give them credit for shutting down early. Give them credit for trying to do so many things, and give them credit also for the fact that this country followed its leader. I think that's a big deal. Of course, the migrant issue was heartbreaking. It was completely heartbreaking to see what happened. And in fact, even now you see this. I've started to go to my office in Gurgaon, and you still see some of this movement happening. It's really, really sad to see.
Ajay, I was surprised in the media itself did not take notice of migrant worker. I was the first to put out my video about 5 weeks ago, that you can't treat migrant worker as a corona villains. They were treating them as corona villains. Therefore, every state government wanted to keep them in their state. In fact, Bombay chief minister said, okay, they should not be allowed to go. Somebody has blocked the border. So they were all treating this labor as a villain. But after that, everybody started waking up and everybody's on the road taking videos and becoming like a corona tourism, as started in media as well. That is what is happening. But let it come back to the civil aviation sector. What you're saying, when you open up, what kind of future you have after COVID-19? Civil aviation sector, because there are different things which I will discuss later with you. But how you see when the seats are opened up and the flights normally are opened up, what kind of challenges you are going to face?
Well, firstly, of course, people will have to get used to what everybody is now calling a new normal. I mean, at the very least, we have to take extreme care that aviation doesn't become a source of spreading the infection. And therefore, at the very least, people will be required to wear a face mask, perhaps even a face shield. We will have to give them, fluid for disinfecting their hands. There will be a web check-in process by which everybody will have to check in through the web and not have to stand in lines, crowding the check-in counters. The baggage drop. So, we have to create a new SOP, which is for contactless travel. In some of that, actually, there will be some reform as well, because there are lots of old antiquated processes that we still follow, which are really not followed anywhere in the world. So some of this compulsion to have contactless travel will actually help improve the aviation sector. So
I'm assuming that all the guidelines will be followed. I'm assuming that all of you will take care of the passenger. I'm talking in terms of economics of civil aviation sector in this country. What would happen today? Nirmala Sitharaman has announced some kind of a reform which will reduce the flying time from, say, Delhi to Bombay, flying directly or not indirectly. How much? I just want to ask a question as a passenger. Which sector you think, from Delhi to Chennai, I was saying earlier, 3 hours almost. With this new guideline, the airspace control definition being redefined, how much time you will gain in this kind of thing?
1 minute, Prabhu. I also wanted, this whole thing about reducing airspace time, the Delhi-Bombay route particularly,
1 hour and 50 minutes.
Naresh Chandra committee had suggested it in 2002 or 2003. India moves at its own pace, even aviation moves at its own pace. But you're right.
How much time is saved? Let me ask the question.
And costs are saved also.
Right. So you can actually save up to 15 or 20 minutes on the routes that you mentioned, Delhi, Bombay, Delhi, Chennai, if you take a straight path. And this is something which should have been done in any case. We've been talking about it for a long time. It's a win-win for everybody, for the reason that it saves fuel for the airlines, it saves time for the passengers, and it protects the environment because you burn less fuel, and the country has to import less fuel. So it's a win-win all around. It's great that it's happened now. It should have happened sooner, but it's great that it's happened now. In terms of economics of travel, look, we've got to see. We are one of the fortunate few countries that have a strong domestic market, and that actually puts us in a position where we can actually use this crisis as a big opportunity to negotiate so many things. Our aircraft contracts, our engineering contracts. There aren't very many places where aircraft can go today. The aviation market is dead. Think of all these network carriers. There is going to be no international travel, or very, very limited international travel for the longest time. What happens to all these guys in the Gulf? Emirates and Etihad and, the Singapore Airlines, whose job it was, who had no domestic markets of their own, but whose job it was really to take people from one country and take them to another. So those guys are going to be in a lot of trouble. And the countries that will benefit eventually, even though there's going to be, of course, pain for the next 1 year or so, the countries that will benefit are countries like India and China and Indonesia, where there are strong domestic markets. They will be in a position to negotiate and bargain.
Australia is another one. I think United States is also one.
Australia, of course. Any country where there is a strong home market will benefit.
No, I'm trying to say that there is a lot of confusion about what is the size of Indian civil aviation market. I was trying to do some kind of research. I'm not a civil aviation expert, but I found there was conflict in report. Are we number 3? Are we number 5? Number 8? Various photos give different kind of situation. What is the size of Indian civil aviation market at the moment? Are we number 3rd in the world in terms of traffic? Are we number 5 or are we number 8?
No, see, it depends upon whether you want to do this in terms of the number of passengers.
Just one passenger.
Or the revenue. If you do it in terms of the number of passengers we are carrying, we are probably number 3 or 4 right now. Now the thing is that despite this number 3 or 4 or 5 or 7 or whatever you may want to say, today only 3% of Indians fly. Now this number has to go up. If you remember, both of you were there when these. So much a part of all the telecom reforms when they were happening. And we used to always say, what the hell is going on? China has 120 million mobile phones and we have 2.8 million mobile phones. And why does this happen? And it happened because the tariffs were high and we had put all sorts of taxes, and so the tariffs were high. And as soon as we brought the tariff down, the market exploded. Similarly, we think that there is this opportunity in aviation where if you can rationalize traffic, the tariffs today, of every 100 rupees that you are paying for your ticket, 50 rupees is going to the government in all sorts of taxes. So now if you can just find a way to reduce it, why the hell are we paying 40% tax on fuel when no other country pays 40% tax on fuel around the world. So we have to look at these issues. We have to decide whether flying is something which is for the rich, or flying is something which ought to be for all Indians, and flying is something which actually improves states' economies and tourism and so on and so forth, and therefore needs to be encouraged and not taxed like you tax cigarettes and color televisions or liquor or whatever it is that you do. So there shouldn't be punitive taxes on aviation. If you can do it, of course, the size is enormous.
Say, is there a case to be made that travel by flights may be less contagious than travel by other routes, and thereby you make a case for a lower tariff, lower cost regime that makes more Indians, enables more Indians to fly? I mean, it's still a very, as you said, only 3% of Indians are flying. It's a very restricted, 25 years after reforms or 30 years after reforms, we are flying only 3% of Indians. It's quite a sad thing. And as you rightly said, that much of it is due to the cost factor and the tariff. So is there a case to be made that it might be more hygienic, less contagious to fly?
Oh, certainly. I think there is no doubt about that, Shankkar. Look at it. It's a controlled space. You can put all sorts of rules. You can avoid crowding at airports. You can ensure that once people are in the aircraft, that they are going to keep them face masks on, face shields on. You can make sure that the way the technology works in aircraft, air actually comes in from the top and goes out from the bottom. So there is no circulation of air which really happens. And once the air actually goes out, it goes through what is called a HEPA filter. And it's the cleanest possible air that you get anywhere in the world inside an aircraft. That's the new technology of aircraft. So this is not something which exists in any other form of public transport. I mean, imagine, look at how metros run in this country. I mean, can you really prevent them from being overcrowded? Can you actually stop public buses from having people sit on the roofs? Look at what the way trains run. So this is absolutely the safest mode of public transport, and we actually believe that there is a case to be made for the fact that a lot of people who traveled long distance by train, 20 hours, 22 hours, at least in second AC and first AC and such classes, can very well choose to go by air, and in fact probably will, because it exposes them to infection and contact for a far shorter period of time.
So when do you think you'll start flying? What's your idea of when Indians will start flying within India and when international flights could take off?
Well, I think within India, at least the Ministry of Civil Aviation seems to be extremely keen that we start soon. It really depends, I think, on the states, whether they are willing to accept flights into their states. So I would think that it will happen in a phase-wise manner. Possibly even starting as early as next week, but initially I think the flights will probably be to the green zones and the orange zones and so on, and the states that choose to have flights operating.
By that standard, you will not be. That standard, you will not be able to fly to either to Kolkata or Chennai or in Mumbai. They're all in red zones.
Of course. So it will be extremely limited. Prabhu, it will be actually extremely limited, I think, to start with. So it will open up phase-wise, in a phase-wise manner. As far as international travel is concerned, I think that's going to be some distance away. I think it's still a few months away.
No, I'm again back to civil aviation sector, because that's a sector in which a lot of India's economic growth also depends, because a lot of tourism will come, because we're getting a lot of tourists earlier. Now I don't know who will come to India. No Indians will going abroad anyway. For example, Singapore, largest number of visitors were of India only. Largest single group was Indian. So that will have economics of some kind, because domestically I'm looking at the figures. Because every portal has a different kind of figures. How many, according to you, are flying every year domestic passengers? Because if I look at the website, some websites say something else, like IBA, Indian Brand Equity Fund, the foundation. They're saying they are 290 million passengers. Domestic are 235. ITAS, DGCA, there's something else. And we have got Invest India, which always builds the whole picture differently. So what are the actual figures which are there?
So actually, what the way typically this gets calculated is that look, for an airline like SpiceJet, which has, let's say, a 13% market share, we fly about 20 million passengers every year. So you can just extrapolate from that, so typically you would probably have about 150, 160 million passengers flying today. But remember, the reason that 3% number comes is because the people who fly tend to fly more than once. So they fly 3 times or 4 times on average.
But I'm looking at, Ajay, you are selling ticket on which you are paying taxes to the government. Every ticket is counted. Like SIM card, every SIM card, like everybody is claiming that we have got about 1,000 million SIM cards, which means some cards are expired also. But how can it, if you go to Wikipedia, it says 350 million passengers.
Look,
if you go to West India, some research fellow who is being paid 5 lakh rupees a month says something else. Say something at DGS, for example, DGS is the most conservative. They said only 140 million domestic passengers flew in 2019. 64 million were foreigners. So 350 and 250, this is some kind of difference. I don't know what is happening.
I'm just telling you that, look, we fly 20 million passengers in a year. We are 13% of the domestic market. And therefore, if you just extrapolate and multiply that 13 by about 7.5, you'll get about 140 to 150 million passengers. I think the number that you need to really trust is the DGCA number. These are the domestic.
Invest India is the Niti Aayog fund, the flagship promotional site, which gives the wrong figure.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know how. I just saw it before coming to. I want to check what is the size of the Indian investing market here. Everybody fixed the door. I'm just saying, you got how many? 100 airports now. They have announced today. They have announced 8 more airports also. Because COVID has been used and an opportunity, as rightly pointed out, let every difficulty should be turned into opportunity. Now they're opening up airport, they're introducing reforms, they're not giving packages for anything else, but they're also opening up the economy in different ways. But you've got 100 airports, let us assume, because you have got how many? About 750 or what airstrips, or how many airstrips have you got in India? I think more.
Yeah, so you have a very large number of airstrips, and in fact, you have a very large number of airports which are nearly operational as well. And in fact, let me tell you that one of the most successful schemes of the government of India in recent times has been this regional connectivity scheme. And in that, what they did was they picked up places where there were airports but no flights.
We have a CEO from the ICC. He will ask you a question about this particular connectivity also later. Let us finish it. Mr. Ajay Singh, the CEO of Indian Chamber of Commerce, Calcutta. I will ask you a question later about exactly on this. So I'm not asking you. Yeah, you complete first.
Yes. So I was saying that, just under that, so we had 74 airports which became operational since independence. Since 1947 until 2 years ago, we had 74 operational airports. In the last 2 years, because of this RCS scheme, we've made close to 45 more airports operational. So that's been a tremendous success. Suddenly, places which had no chance of being connected, had never been connected. Places like Adampur, which is actually Jalandhar. Places like just incredible number. This Ajmer Sharif, which has been connected. So many of our flights have gone to places where there was absolutely no chance of connectivity. Porbandar and Kandla and just incredible number of airports that SpiceJet itself has started. So one of the most successful schemes has been this. And of course, you need to use aircraft and airlines to connect remote parts of your country where there is no hope of connections or reasonable connections through road and by rail.
But Ajay, if you look at your flying frequency of various stations within India, I come to little later. But when you look at the distribution of, it is very skewed. Your 80% of your flights are flying to the metros and tier A or B cities. You go to Bombay, you got 100 flights a day, both sides. If you want to go to, say, Bhubaneswar, you may be having now they have got 10, 12 flights, but they're not, Patna, there are not enough flights happening. Chennai also not enough there. So you are also looking at the profit, obviously. I don't blame you because you have to.
No. It's a myth. Let me tell you that flying to small stations sometimes is more profitable than flying yet another flight between Delhi and Mumbai. Because there are already 80 flights between Delhi and Mumbai. If you add the 81st one, you're not going to make money doing it. You, in fact, will make money going to a smaller station. But to the example that you just gave, firstly, this is changing. It is spreading out. as also as obviously these metro airports get choked and clogged. People are going to smaller airports, parking their aircraft at smaller airports, even in the northeast now, into Guwahati and Imphal and such places. And so there are more flights from there. Look, the natural progression is that first there are flights from metro to metro, then there are flights between metro to non-metro, and then there are flights between non-metro to non-metro. Increasingly, that number is increasing, and you'll see that change really start to happen sooner rather than later. Now the percentage of those non-metro airports is going up, and it's not about profitability. It is actually more profitable sometimes to non-metro airports, and increasingly, let me tell you this as well, that from small towns into international destinations. From our perspective, our flight between to Dubai, if you take a flight like Dubai, a Delhi-Dubai flight makes less money than a Amritsar-Dubai flight or a Jaipur-Dubai flight.
Why?
So we need to be conscious of these tier 2, tier 3. That's where potential growth is going to be in the future.
Even in terms of Ajay, I'm looking at the traffic movement flying out of India also. Our airliner, all of you put together, jet is not there at the moment. But I am looking at the 40% of your capacity is concentrated on Middle East only. All your flights are going to Middle East. Rest of the world you don't fly. Maybe you are late entrant, you will start little later. 40% of your capacity is Middle East, Dubai and Sharjah and Abu Dhabi and these places you are going. You are not going international. Except Air India, no other flight is at the moment going anywhere else. So there has to be money comes almost for long haul flights. I'm told you make more money on their long haul flights are full. But so, why this you already want to go to Gulf now, because after COVID you may not find the Gulf market attractive anymore.
No, so let me tell you this. The reason that we all fly to the Gulf is because firstly, of course, there was a market and it's a short haul flight. So it's almost like flying a domestic flight, right? Now, when you fly to countries such as, let's say the UK or US or whatever, you need a different kind of aircraft. You need that wide body, big plane, large range, etc. And there is no question about the fact that Indian carriers will have to figure a way in which they start flying those kind of flights. Because, up till now, it's been extremely challenging for Indian carriers. We have a cost structure which is not competitive. And we had all these Middle Eastern carriers taking traffic from India, hubbing it in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Doha, and then taking them onwards to Europe and to the US. So this is something which we need to stop. We need to create our own global hubs in India, and we need to make sure that we fly our own passengers from India to different parts of the world. There's no question about it. India needs to do it. We need to find the policy measures to make that happen.